couldn't explain. And it goes behind like a little tree or a rock and it just disappears. And so that kind of freaked me out a little bit. My name is Rick Derringer and became interested in Bigfoot when I was about 10 years old. My dad and I were driving up to Alaska from Nevada and going through the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. There was lots of, Bigfoot items at the stores or statues, things like that. I remember having my picture taken by next to a Bigfoot statue. It was probably like 20 feet tall up in British Columbia, and kind of got used, liking Bigfoot, just from them, just the lore of, the creatures running around the forest, and was familiar with Bigfoot prior to that from some of the shows on TV with like In Search of, or even the $6 Million Man, the Bigfoot character on there. So kind of got interested in it, that way.
Well, a lot of people got interested through that time period because
Mhm.
there were the shows and various ways of becoming introduced with this kind of phenomenal creature. So after that, you became an adult. How did that impact you? How did you go out and then have more interest in Bigfoot, and then all the way to opening this museum?
Yeah, read lots of books and, lived in Alaska, lived, in Oregon, Nevada, and used to do a lot of hiking and, kind of searching around for Bigfoot, even as a teenager, adult, really got interested in that. It's kind of a funny story. My background is in printing. I've been printing for about 34 years. And when I moved up here about 6 years ago, wanted to name my store kind of a Bigfoot. So I named it Bigfoot Print and Copy, and just did copying. That's all I've, been doing for many years. And so I would have customers coming in, or, tourists driving by because they saw the Bigfoot thing and looking for Bigfoot items. And I had nothing, I'm like, I can make you a copy, but that's about it. And so started carrying a few items, some cups, keychains, a couple of hats, just had a really small display. And it just kind of expanded into, a full blown Bigfoot gift shop. But to go with the gift shop, I really wanted to have a museum because I've always been interested in the casts and, wanted casts when I was a kid. And, so ended up getting, a bunch of casts. I got some from Dr. Meldrum. He was just amazing in helping me with that. And just different news articles. Got a hold of the Humboldt State Library there in Humboldt, California. They sent me a bunch of newspaper clippings and just a bunch of different people. Even local people have given me casts, some local researchers and so forth. So just kind of turned into a nice little museum for people to come see, and we have a place for people to write down their stories, really a neat thing to kind of read, their encounters and so forth. And yeah, that's kind of what we have here. And it's not a huge museum, but it's just really nice and put together well, and everybody seems to be pretty impressed with it.
Well, I would imagine you're in a position to hear a lot of Bigfoot encounter stories. So, do you have
Mhm.
some that you could share with us?
There's a few, that were written down. I have a few that people have told me. I just talked to a guy, I think it was Tuesday, that had six encounters with the big guy, from, being a teenager up until, just a few years ago. He's actually out of Medford. Pretty neat character. You can kind of tell when they're pretty serious about their stories. You can tell by looking in their eyes and, their actions and so forth. And we have a few people that have come in. I think they ate a little too many mushrooms that day, you know. But for the most part, some of the stories are pretty good. There was a story, of course, with Dr. Johnson up at the Oregon caves. That was a pretty well documented case. He was up hiking with his family at the Oregon caves. This was back, I think, January 6th of 2000. And had an encounter up there with him, and it just totally changed his life. He's written a couple of books about that. just miscellaneous, stories. There's some that the were on like Sasquatch Chronicles and so forth. And so you get to hear their stories and then listen to the podcast, and it's pretty, verbatim of how they explain to you, just maybe the Reader's Digest version story. Pretty interesting that. There's stories. There's a mountain range just right to the west of us. It's called West Side Road, and heard many stories of people over there. Lady bought a house there. This is probably, I don't know, the story she told me about 3 or 4 years ago. Bought a house, and when she bought the house from the guy, he says, just to let you know, there is a family of Sasquatch or Bigfoot that live on the property, and she's seen them. She says that she feels like they are kind of a protector of something in that area, but don't bother her, and just kind of lives with them and so forth. So like I said, lots of little stories like that I've heard. Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah, I would imagine there's a lot of draw there being a museum that,
Mm-hmm.
that people want to see what you have, but then they also want to share what they've experienced.
Oh yeah.
So the area now, give me specifically, where is your museum located?
We are in Cave Junction, Oregon. It's off of Highway 199 going to the coast, going like towards Northern California, Oregon border right there, like Crescent City, California, Brookings, Oregon.
So this is real close to a lot of the action that happens out there in the Oregon, Washington, Northern California area that people talk about a lot.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We're not, maybe drive time to the Patterson Gimlin, where they film Patty, about 3.5 hour drive, from there. So we do have a lot of people that stop in that are kind of actually on their way to Willow Creek, California to go check out the site or the museum and the town as well over there. And kind of the cool part about the museum is getting people from all over the country that stop in and all over the world. We've had them, we just had a couple, two ladies from Australia yesterday that came in, and we've had them from, the UK. We even had a family from Israel that came in that wasn't real familiar with the Bigfoot thing. And so I kind of explained to them a little bit about it. But just, yeah, just all over England. We had a young man from Japan that came in, and like I said, all over the United States. We have a guest book, and they signed the guest book, and it's kind of neat just to see how far people actually travel and that are interested in Bigfoot, or want to learn about Bigfoot.
Well, what do you think Bigfoot is specifically?
I'm not really sure. I'm really open to, anything. At first, I just thought it was like maybe an ape, man creature, when I was younger. But doing some more reading and speaking with, some researchers and stuff. I mean, a lot of them kind of tend to that they're an interdimensional being, and I'm open to that. I just don't know a lot about that. I always tell people I know there's something out there, because some people come in and they're like, we don't believe, somebody's making those footprints, and so I kind of try to explain to them a little bit about the footprints and how they read, with the dermal ridges and arches, and kind of the research that Dr. Meldrum does, on the prints. So as far as what it is, I don't know. I just know that there's something out there making those tracks and the sightings. And there's probably some misidentifications for sure. We went on an expedition with the BFRO back about, I don't know, 7 years ago, and we were kind of driving around, and there was a black bear, and the black bear stood up, on his hind legs. I'm like, well, you could definitely misidentify that as you were driving by or not really paying attention to kind of, hey, there's a big creature, and didn't really know what it was, especially people that do not spend a lot of time in the woods. So I definitely can
And,
see there's some
and,
misidentification.
and so many of the sightings are just in the car, you're driving down the road and there's a Bigfoot pops out of the woods or crosses in front of you.
Right.
Here might be harder to identify in broad daylight going across the road.
Mhm.
Can't imagine them standing up, walking across the road. But if it's just on the side of the road, that might be a different story.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, definitely. So, But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing, just getting all the different people into the museum that kind of have their own theories or their own stories of, what
What's
Bigfoot is. Yeah.
what's the most common theory that you hear from people that come through?
I am leaning more towards the interdimensional. It seems like a lot of people are kind of changing their mind with that, and that they are, they kind of cloak, their self. Or I've heard stories of people that have seen, a Bigfoot, and it goes behind like a little tree or a rock, and it just disappears. If
Yeah,
something was
yeah,
that tall, an 8 foot tall creature, 600, 700 pounds, how would that just disappear behind a small tree? So
that's
maybe there,
true. Yeah.
maybe there's a portal, or something to that effect, that they're going through. So it kind of makes a lot of sense, because there is a lot of stories, to that effect, that they just kind of disappear and they don't see them or hear them anymore. So I'm kind of leaning more towards that, but I don't know, that much as far as research and so forth. I've talked to Ron Moorhead. He is kind of leaning more towards that as well. He's the one that recorded the Sierra Sounds and has written a few books. So it seems like some of the researchers are kind of going, that way.
There is a lot of firsthand experience with seeing something that's phenomenal and that can't explain. I've also heard of kind of an electric light show kind of going on around or off of like sparks, and they're there and then poof, a light flash and they're gone. Like
Correct.
there's some
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
Like orbs. I've heard, stories of them seeing orbs, before or after, or even during, their sighting. So it kind of makes you wonder, as well. And some people kind of tie it to, extraterrestrial, UFO type things as well.
Well, I think that out in Pennsylvania, there has been some observation of a Bigfoot and UFO kind of simultaneously being seen together. I don't know that I've heard that in any other area of the country where they were actually seen together. But one of the questions I ask a lot of people who've had an encounter is if they have ever seen a UFO. And a lot of the same people have UFO experiences, they have ghost phenomenal experiences, as well as Bigfoot experiences. And there seems to be some kind of a thread maybe through those experiences whereby people like me don't have experience with any of that.
Right. Yeah, I definitely a correlation, I think, with that. I've had, a couple of ghostly experiences. Haven't really seen, any UFO, things around here. But although I have heard many stories of UFOs around here, there's a mountain called Hope Mountain, and they actually said that there's a UFO landing pad up there that somebody built, just because there was a lot of UFO type activity. So I don't know if that ever happened, but it is still, I guess, around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's something certainly that seems to have if there's a correlation between them, or they just happen to end up at the same place at the near the same time. So, what are your paranormal experiences then?
Just I've had a couple of experiences. I've been touched at a friend's house, and pretty weird, because I said, "Did you feel that?" And I'm not sure why I asked her that. And she goes, "Oh, you mean this?" And she touched me the same way that I just felt. And we were probably 6 feet away when I felt that. And it was like a little poke in your side. And she goes, "Yeah, there's a little girl in her apartment." And so it was just weird, because I don't know why I asked her, "Did you feel that?" And so she touched, did the touch thing. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I felt." And then another one was at my old house. I was on the phone with one of my employees in the den, and just saw something out of the corner of my eye, just like a little black shadow. And I thought, well, it must have not been anything. Well, I turned over, and the curtains were moving. So where that shadow went had enough, energy to move the curtains. And so that kind of freaked me out a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I
it
mean, I
would. Yeah.
didn't feel scared, but just like, oh, this is weird. So, and there's no way to explain there. That's it exactly is what it had to be. Yeah.
Well, exactly. And I've heard also that kind of that haunted ghost kind of thing, being able to leave footprints, which takes us back to Bigfoot.
Mhm.
That there's lots of footprints around, but does that mean that it's actually a full flesh and blood creature, or is it just capable of leaving some kind of footprints like a ghost might?
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting theory as well. Yeah. I've heard that as well. Like, excuse me, the footprints they just kind of disappear. They'll
I've heard
be
that.
they'll be doing a little trackway and then they just kind of disappear, which I think is pretty odd.
Yeah, true. I think that sometimes that does indeed happen where they can't follow it on forward.
Hmm.
And there's lots of theories about that too. But still, and when it's in the snow, especially, some say that they're backtracking on those
Yeah.
footsteps, but I don't know. I did a show with a family that had lots of really good pictures, and they woke up one morning and there were tracks. There was such a long span between the prints. It had to be something huge because the man
Right.
tried his best to get that span, and he absolutely could not do it physically, and he was a fairly tall
Right.
man. So there's something, that was making these tracks, and it's happened a couple of times in snow in their at their home, and they were hearing the vocals as well as other very unusual, phenomenal
Yeah.
things happening at their house. So those things do indeed, happen. Um, so what have you've never really gone out and done research yourself? Have you ever been a boots on the ground kind of researcher?
Yeah, we go out. I'm not sure about as far as researching, but we go out quite a bit and go hiking and looking around for Bigfoot sign, different looking for tracks, looking for tree breaks, and that's pretty much the only things that I have ever seen were tree breaks and just things that you couldn't explain. We saw some about maybe a month or so ago, and it was like a tree structure way off the side of the road. You would have had to really, if you're trying to fake it, you would have had to put in a lot of work to it. So it's kind of a teepee looking tree structure. And what kind of got us was, yeah, maybe a branch or something could have fallen, but there was two sticks going horizontal or two limbs on each side. Well, I thought that was really strange that there's no way that that would have fallen, into that direction. So, just seeing some interesting, tree breaks as well, super high up, maybe 8 foot tall. A green tree where there's no way it would have just busted. We didn't have any snow, no windstorms, and that was the only tree around. So I've seen that multiple places. Seen a tree that was up maybe 6 foot, broke and then broke again and then back down into almost making like a doorway or a pathway. I was almost afraid to walk through there. I might end up in another dimension or something.
That's true. And I have heard some kind of spooky things about that. You've probably heard about the stairways in the woods that,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and whether that be true or not, I don't know, but it certainly is going around right now where people are talking about like forest rangers or whatever finding these and being told not to continue, not to walk up, and what would they be doing there. So you've heard about
Right.
those.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yep. I have heard, yeah, read some different, things and also the trees that are upside down as well. Big huge trees that are just put into the ground that are upside down.
Have you, does that happening in your area by chance?
No, not in the area. I know there were some stories up in Alaska that that's happened, but nothing around here. I haven't seen or heard any stories of that around here. Yeah.
Yeah. When you were in Alaska, were you into Bigfoot? Did you hear any stories that happened up there?
It's it's funny because I was into it a lot when I was younger, and then going to Alaska as a teenager, I didn't really get into it and follow it as much, and I did so much hiking and camping up there, but wasn't really scared or thinking about Bigfoot because I just didn't really hear a lot of stories of Bigfoot in Alaska. So, me and a friend hiked the Chilkoot Trail there. at 15 years old, and you're literally in the middle of nowhere. We didn't see one person for the 5 days we were gone. But wasn't thinking, I was thinking more of bears than Bigfoot. So kind of, really being in Alaska, wasn't thinking of Bigfoot. I always just kept thinking it was going to be more in Washington or Oregon or, California, those types of places, or, British Columbia.
Yeah, it wasn't until later on that we started getting more information, probably from Alaska. I've done several interviews of people
Right.
from that area, and one person has just had just quite a few experiences. But he's a
Mm-hmm.
photographer and he's out in the wild a lot, and of course he's quiet because he's trying to capture wildlife images,
Right.
and so Bigfoot just seems to be present where he is. So I think there is probably quite a bit of activity up that way.
Right. Yeah, I would. And like I said, I wish I would have been more, thinking about it, because then I would have been looking for more sign and, things like that. I mean, they probably were out there and probably saw me. I wasn't thinking of them. So yeah. And just watched, different stories on more Alaska stuff, like that Portlock place, and just watched Expedition X. Last night, and they were doing a Bigfoot Sasquatch thing there in Alaska. So I just watched that last night.
Yeah, there's a lot. So, what do you think about the kind of explosion that we have right now of popularity of Bigfoot, Bigfoot shows, Bigfoot books? Everybody's talking Bigfoot. What do you think has caused that, and where do you think we're headed with it?
I don't know. It's kind of strange because, you know, as I was probably around 40, and I had been lugging all these Bigfoot books around. I just like, I read them. I just kept them in a bin in my garage. And so I ended up donating them to a Native American library. And then, of course, like 5 years later, the whole Bigfoot explosion kind of came up. I'm like, God, I wish I had those books, because a lot of them were out of print, and some John Green books and things like that. And so I really wish I had those back. But and I had a whole bunch of just different newspaper articles in a nice little binder that was like my little research stuff, and donated all that to the library. But yeah, I don't know what the explosion is. Just maybe more sightings, just a popularity thing, and keep thinking that it's going to die down, but it just seems like it's getting bigger and bigger, and more shows, more festivals, things like that. We did have a festival here in 2019, here in Cave Junction, had a few speakers, and we're going to do like a larger one in 2020. And then, of course, the whole COVID thing kind of, screwed that up. But we just haven't really rekindled that whole thing. But we'd like to definitely do that. But there are definitely, a whole bunch of different festivals around the Oregon area. So it's nice to attend those, and get to be around like-minded people that are, that you can talk to about different stories and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And you're right. There are festivals on every corner right now. And
Right.
a lot of really great people are coming forward and telling their stories. I think there's just a wealth of
Mhm.
information
Right.
that has not been heard yet. And this may be one of the reasons that this is exploding right now. People are coming forward. Up until
Yeah.
now, a lot of people have been ridiculed, or they just felt somewhat embarrassed about talking about it.
Correct.
And
Yep.
there's a legitimacy coming out that's like, no, this is happening. People are having
Hmm.
these encounters.
Yeah, we did. I did talk to a guy it was last fall, and he's a 40 year, on the force as a police officer. And he was kind of a closet Bigfoot guy, because he had a sighting, but he could not tell anybody, because he was on the witness stand quite often, and they would have, ridiculed him for that, as far as, oh yeah, you saw Bigfoot, type of thing. And so he's not doing the detective work anymore. So he's actually coming out to tell people more about his story. But yeah, he definitely didn't want to say anything to anybody, just because of, taking the stand of what the people might think of him. So it was kind of an interesting story, and what he had told me about, the sighting. So it's pretty cool.
Are you able to share that with us, what he saw?
I don't have a lot of detail. They was him and a buddy that were, I think he was from like Indiana or somewhere, but him and a buddy were hunting in Montana, and had an experience there when they were out hunting, just kind of, walking around and happen to see, Bigfoot up on the hill and, maybe 100 yards away. And they go, that's definitely not a bear. It's walking upright. And so not a lot of detail, but it was just kind of neat that, he shared that story with us.
Yeah, for sure. So have you heard any of the vocals? I know the Sierra Sounds happen not far from there, but have you heard any vocals?
I personally haven't, no, and we actually play the Sierra Sounds here in the museum during the day. I have a little CD player, and we play that during the day in here, so people can kind of hear the vocalizations. But personally, I have not heard anything, with that. So I'm getting lots of tips from people that have seen Bigfoot on, what to do and what kind of not to do, which is kind of interesting. So, you see these shows where people are doing the tree knocks and the whistles and the howls and the whoops and stuff like that. But some of the people that I've spoke to said you really don't want to do that because they'll know that it's you and they may not reply back to you, type of thing. Because usually when we go in the hills, that's what we're doing. We're doing the hand claps and all that kind of stuff, but never got anything back. So we'll kind of go out and just kind of see what happens next time.
Sure.
Yeah.
I hear a lot that people go out and very, very seldom they get anything. Of course, they're very excited when they do.
Oh yeah.
Seldom do they actually get something back. And then there are those rare people that it seems like they're just everywhere they go, there's a Bigfoot.
Right. Yep. That guy that I spoke to the other day, has had 6 sightings. I'm like, God, I want to hang out with you. Yep.
Exactly. It's
Yep.
like they're just drawn to him. Yeah.
Right. And as far as the sightings, I've heard people say, because I'm like, yeah, I have a Bigfoot story. I wish I had a sighting. And some people are like, no, you don't, because it changes your life. Some people are afraid to go back out in the hills, the mountains, or go hunting or whatever, just because of their sightings. So I don't want that type of a sighting, though, where I can't go out and enjoy the woods and go camping and hiking and so forth. So, I always say I just like to have a sighting. I'm driving by in my truck and there goes one across the highway or something. But
That would be the safer route to go
right,
for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you listen to the Sierra Sounds often because you're right there in the museum. But
Hmm.
what do you think of those?
I definitely think they're legit. I mean, they're just amazing. And speaking with Ron when he came in the store a couple of years back, he seems pretty legit as far as what he's recorded and so forth. So, they're playing all day long in the museum, so I get to hear them all. I don't know if you've heard that CD or not, but there's definitely some interesting stuff and some 911 calls that they play in there about people that have seen Bigfoot and they're calling, 911 to, have somebody come out and check it out. So definitely worth listening to. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they are. It's
Mhm.
fascinating. I
Yeah.
did actually the first Bigfoot show I did was with Scott Nelson, who analyzed those, the linguist that analyzed those.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just fascinating because it does have all of the qualities of some form of a language.
Right.
Of
Yeah, definitely. Mhm.
course, even to this day, Ron Moorhead won't say for sure that's Bigfoot because as they were recording them, they didn't really see
Right.
where these vocals were coming from or from whom or what was creating them.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, what else it could have been. There definitely weren't people out there making those noises. Um, so yeah, yeah, you just never know. Like I said before, it's there's something out there. We just don't know 100% what it is.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
thing I hear fairly often is, just like Ron had at the campsite, they just thought the campsite was being torn apart because of all the noise and rummaging through everything and throwing things. And it just sounded like something was just so destructive outside their tent.
Right.
And the next day they get up and everything is completely intact at the campsite. So
Well,
don't know what that noise was. And I hear
yeah.
often that, that there will be something in a wooded area they can't see it, but they can hear it, and it's just absolutely ferocious. Maybe at
Hmm.
night, or it may just be out of view, but it's in an area they may see brush moving over there, but it's just this hellacious sound and rampage by something in the woods. And then after it's all said and done, eventually when they get their nerve up, of course, they go look in the area to see what is trampled down or trees,
Hmm.
crushed down or whatever was happening. And there's no evidence that anything was ever in that area of the woods. It is a strange thing, but it's almost as if sound is as deceptive or elusive as
Right.
that
Yeah.
creature itself, the Bigfoot
Correct.
being
Yeah.
itself. It's like it's really difficult to pinpoint what we're dealing with here.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting phenomenon, of what they are or what they're capable of, and yeah, where they're from. Yeah, there's
Exactly.
yeah, just some different, I'm sure you've probably heard about the giants there in Nevada in the Lovelock Caves that they found these huge race of you know, people or men that were just huge. And is that what they are? Could they be just a descendant of them, or yeah, or what's the possibility? Yeah.
Exactly. And because we do have, people that see them in family units, with young
Hmm.
ones, and there's some evidence of, hair being left behind, caught, where they have actual physical evidence of that.
Hmm.
We have, scat, there's, there are all kinds of things that says, yes, this looks to be a flesh and blood creature. But then it has all these other elements, and that's where we become confused because we don't know exactly what or why.
Right.
These other parts are as much as this just physical being in the woods.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. We have a hair sample in here and also a scat sample. We don't know what they are. They could just be bear, but the hair that we have is from a local researcher and said that they were following a bipedal, creature and that they had found a few hairs. So he gave me one. I just haven't had it sent in for any kind of sample. It's kind of I like having the mystery of it because I'd hate to have it come back and it said bear or something. So I just kind of keep it in the jar over there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand the people that have analyzed that more, that there is a specific there's some quality to the hair that's different than a bear, but I don't
Mhm.
remember exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And this one's pretty long. It's black, and pretty long, but yeah, I just like keeping the mystery of it. So I just put on the little tag that it's possible, Bigfoot hair.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
wise move.
Yep. Yep.
And of course, they're seen in multiple colors. The red, the black, the brown, the rust color,
Hmm.
even white. What is the look that most people describe to you that they've seen?
The color is kind of a reddish brown is some of the more of the colors that I keep hearing. I've heard of somebody told me that they saw kind of almost like an old man grayish color. So yeah, you just all the different I like you said the same colors I've heard of, but seems like the reddish brown are more of the colors that I hear from. And when people describe what the creature looked like, I mean the majority of them like it's just so muscular, just really big and muscular. So yeah.
Yeah, pretty intimidating creature for sure.
Right, for sure. Yeah. Yep.
One of the repetitive things I hear also is the humanness look in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And with the eyes, when they look, you're not looking at like a bear. You're not looking at it, at a just an animal. That there's
Sure.
just such a
Yeah.
humanness to the look in the face. Have you heard that? And
Yes, I had. There's been stories of that. Not anybody that's told me the story that, they were out hunting, they saw the Bigfoot, they had it, in their sights in their rifle or their scope, and they couldn't take the shot because it was just like it would have been murder. They felt like it was such a human, looking creature that they just couldn't shoot it.
right, and
Yeah,
of course, some people believe that they're an offshoot of some indigenous race of human.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
That
Native Americans think that as well. Yeah.
Um, what about the Native Americans in your area? I know that I've talked to people that have done some research on the Patty film, and they've talked to Native Americans around that story about how these Bigfoot has been in the area for a really long time, and it's kind of a legendary tale with the Native Americans. Have you had any interest in that or knowledge about it?
A little bit. There's a couple of local Native Americans that have been into the store. They're customers of ours. They a lot of them think that they're a protector of the woods. Um, that they don't feel scared or anything like that, and they'll, when they do go out in the woods, they'll leave an offering of, some apples or something like that, just thanking them for, protecting the woods type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
haven't
kind of
heard anything, yeah,
like
super scary, about them. They just feel that they're protecting the woods and so forth. Yeah.
I've also heard that they believe they kind of come and go, that they go into the heavens and come back and kind of are not always here physical.
Yeah, I definitely have heard that as well. They just, yeah, kind of trying to explain how they would, yeah, kind of go in and out, like, kind of like what we talked about with the portals and that type of thing, where, you see them and then you don't see them.
Right.
Um,
They're there and
yeah,
they're not there. Yeah,
right, exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or half there and half not there even.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I've heard of that even, which is really, really strange. And it would really, I think, be difficult to trust your vision and your eyes and your perception when you see something like that that just doesn't
Right.
behave by normal laws
Yep.
of physics. Yeah.
Right,
That would be
exactly.
very, very strange. So
Yeah.
what about the Patty thing? You're close by up there. There's a lot of information out. It's been around for a really long time. What is your opinion of that?
I definitely believe it's real. They can't disprove it. People have, talked about, it was a guy in a suit or something, and I'm like, well, show me the suit, if that's really you. But when you can see the muscular tones of Patty moving and the stride and everything like that, it's like, how can you duplicate that? And being that that was, 50 some odd years ago, I mean, they would have been way ahead of their time, as far as that type of thing.
Yeah, that's true. The era in which that was made actually gives it more authenticity than anything
Mm-hmm.
else, I think, about the film, actually.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That
Uh,
and like you said, the fact that the muscle movement and those who have studied it at great length certainly have a lot of information on that, the bulk and the movement, and the
right.
fact that it's a female.
Mm-hmm.
Most people who would create a suit wouldn't create a female suit; they would create it a male.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess they've done a lot of enhancing as far as that, and they can definitely show the movement of, even as the Patty is walking with her breast and how that's moving, that they could have never replicated that.
Exactly, because the
Yeah.
muscle would have contributed to all of that movement and would all have had to been
Correct.
connected together, not a suit.
Yep. Correct. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what else can you tell me, Rick?
Um, I don't know. We just are really interested in Bigfoot, and when people come into the shop, just hearing the different stories, is what makes it all worth it. And just and teaching people, about Bigfoot, because people come in, they don't believe or whatever, and you try to explain to them a little bit, and show them the pictures and the cast. I'm like, so what's making these, prints and that type of thing. So it's kind of fun to share that with people, for sure. And hopefully just enlighten them and get them to kind of think, a little bit better and a little bit outside the box, I would say.
Exactly. So tell
Yeah.
me again, what is the name of your museum?
It's Southern Oregon Bigfoot Experience Museum. It's kind of a long name, but yeah. Yeah. SOBFE, we call it. Yeah.
So if you're passing through that area, stop by and see all of the things you have and write down a new story, hopefully.
Yep, definitely. That sounds great. Yep. Looking forward
Okay.
to it.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you so
Okay.
much for the interview this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome. You take care.